Hi, and welcome to Crafts with Ash DIY and Decor. My name's Ashley, and today I'm going to bring you 4 brand new Dollar Tree spring DIYs. In this video, you're going to see a lot of the warm colors and the pale pinks, the pale yellows. You're going to see lots of florals being used and a lot of texture, plus, of course, that rustic touch. I'm also collaborating with my 2 friends, Krafty Kathy and Crafted by Corie, for a spring fling video. More about them in just a little bit. First, if you haven't done so already, please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit that little notification bell so you're notified anytime I upload a new video. Then click the drop-down menu and click all so you're notified about all notifications. I upload videos every Wednesday and Friday, so if you love room makeovers, room refreshers, DIY, home decor inspiration, decorate with me videos, then this is definitely the channel for you. So absolutely stick around. All right, let's get started with these all new spring DIYs. For the first DIY, I'm going to start off with these 2 tag signs. Now, they're not the same size, but that's okay because it's not really going to matter. But I'm going to work with this USA sign first. And I'm going to start off by taking off the little stars. And of course, I'm not going to throw those away. I'm going to keep them probably for 4th of July crafting. And then I'm going to go ahead and sand off the glitter on the front. Then, of course, I'm going to clean up my mess with my little ladybug. So I just cleaned up that glitter so it didn't shed anywhere, but I'm actually going to be using the back of this. Next, by using a chippy brush, I'm going to give this a distressed coat of Waverly chalk paint in white. So what I mean by distressed coat is I'm okay if some of that original board color is coming through. I want it to come through. Now I want the majority of it to be white. As you can see, there's a lot of white, but there are little areas where that brown is peeking through. After my paint was dry, I'm going to take my level, I'm going to place it in the middle of my tag, sorry about my head, and then by using a pencil, I'm going to draw a line on the top and on the bottom. Then I'm just going to move the level down and line up the line that I just drew, and then do the same thing working my way up. Now, I realized that my lines weren't as dark as I wanted, so after I smudged them in with my finger, I did go through and darken them up, so I did push a little harder this time. And then you're going to see that I take my finger again and smudge all my lines. Next, I'm going to take this decal that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I thought that these were so pretty. I just love that pink color. So I'm just going to arrange some of the flowers on my tag. Now, if the flowers are hanging over the edges, that's okay. I am going to cut them down, and I wanted them to look like they were hanging off and, you know, just kind of growing in every direction. So I just kind of played with these flowers until I had them arranged on my board how I liked. Next, I made sure that they were pushed down really well, and then I just cut the part of the sticker that was hanging over. I cut it off by using my scissors. Next, to give my sign nice clean edges, I just took some sandpaper and sanded down the excess sticker that was also hanging off. To give my flowers a more vintage and rustic look, I lightly sanded over them with my sandpaper. Now you can absolutely stop right here and leave that sign just like that, but you know me, I love that rustic look, so I'm going to take the top of a foam brush and I'm going to dip it in some Waverly Antique Wax, and I'm just going to go around the edges of my tag, and you can see that I'm just dabbing it and then kind of wiping it with my finger, and I'm doing this to highlight all of the edges, and I am going around the corners as well. After that, I decided that I wanted the little slats on my board to look a little bit more realistic. So I'm taking my knife and my level, and I'm using that as a straight edge, and I'm just going to score the board 4 times going down each slat. So I saw that, I kind of figured like 4 was the magical number. It was just enough to open up make a cut there, but not cut all the way through the board. And you do want to make sure you don't cut all the way through the board. So after that, I just continued taking my Waverly Antique Wax and I went over all of my cuts. And I did do this at the side of, or like the tippy top of my foam brush. That way it got in each one of those cuts. Then I took my Waverly Antique Wax and I went around the circle, the hole up top, and then I just kind of went randomly over the flowers as well. And you can see that I am smudging it all in with my finger just to kind of help blend it all together. Real quick, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to my YouTube channel. If you're new, thank you so much for choosing to stop by today. I truly hope you love what you see and hang out with me for a while by hitting that subscribe button. If you're returning, you already know I love you, I appreciate you. And thank you so much. You all got me to 17,000 subscribers this past week, and I could not be more blessed and ecstatic about that. I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for all the wonderful comments you give me. I do read them all. I just want you to know, even though I may not be able to respond to each one of them, please know I am reading them, and I do love reading all the comments. So please keep them coming. So after I had my board distressed how I liked it, I just went ahead and gave this entire thing a good coat of Mod Podge. Next, I'm going to take that other tag, and this had like a little raised thing at the bottom, so I peeled that off, and I'm going to go ahead and cut off the red hanger, and then by using my heat gun and my little scraper, I'm going to take off the tag. Now there was still some residue from the glue from the sticker, so I'm just going to sand that down so it's nice and smooth and ready for me to paint. I'm going to do the same thing I did to that first tag, and I'm just going to give this a distressed coat of Waverly chalk paint in white by using my chippy brush. After that dries, I'm going to take this calendar page that I got in the fall, and after I figure out how I want to line it up on my board, I'm going to start at the bottom half and I'm going to Mod Podge that part down first, and then I'm going to go ahead and Mod Podge the top half down. I found it to be easier to do it in sections because then that way it helped get all the bubbles out too and wrinkles. It also helped to use my little brayer tool, and this made sure that it was all pressed down. And then I just kind of went through the edges or the corners where maybe it wasn't stuck down completely, and I just added more Mod Podge until I felt like there was a strong hold. Then I'm going to go through and I'm going to cut the excess paper around my tag. I'm going to cut it off by just using some scissors. Then again, to give it that nice clean cut around the edges, I'm just going to sand it down by using my sandpaper. Next, I'm going to take my level again and I'm going to draw those pencil lines, but I'm actually just going to use the lines that are already on that calendar page. You can see that there's lines already on there, so I'm just lining my lines up and I'm trying to match the thickness of those lines as well. I'm not going all the way across the paper. I'm only doing on the board itself, just so it looks like a continuation of the lines that are from the paper. Then again, I'm going to go through and darken them up and then smudge the pencil with my finger. Now at this point I realized that I wanted to rip the sides of the paper. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'm just kind of peeling it back a little bit. Then you can see I'm just ripping it and just carefully just taking a strip off, you know, the ends basically. This was actually pretty easy to do even though I had already Mod Podged it down. So I did it on both sides. Then I went through and Mod Podged around my sign again to make sure that the calendar page was all stuck down. And then to get off the paper that was kind of stuck on there, I just used my little scraper tool to peel that up. And then I went through and just kind of redid my lines again because I took more paper off, so now they weren't connected, if that makes sense. So I just fixed my pencil lines. Then I'm going to go through with that foam brush and the Waverly Antique Wax, and I'm going to distress the edges just like I did on that other tag. And again, I'm going to use my finger to rub it all in, and that way it helps it all blend together. Next, I took the tippy top of that foam brush and I dipped it in that Waverly Antique Wax again. And I'm just going to go ahead and just kind of highlight the lines going across the board. And this time I did go over the paper. And as you can see, I'm using my finger to blend it in as well. Now, to give the truck and the writing more of a distressed look, I did lightly sand over it with my sandpaper. Now, I did feel that this front sign needed more pink since there was so much pink on the tag behind it. So I have this rickraft, so I'm going to go ahead and just hot glue it kind of toward the top or in the middle of where the paper ends and the top of the actual sign. And instead of cutting off the ends, I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it around and glue it behind the back. And I'm going to do that on the top and the bottom. Next, I'm going to take a really long string of twine and I'm going to double it up and create just a simple shoelace bow. Now, if you know me, you know I'm not really a bow person, so this is pretty much the only bow I know how to make. But I did double it up so it was a little thicker, and then I went ahead and cut the loops off at the bottom. Now, before I attached my bow, I decided it needed some greenery, so I just took some random greenery picks that I had in my stash, and I'm just going to kind of build it up and just kind of make a little floral display, I guess, over here at the top of my sign. Now, I am covering up the hole that was at the top because I'm not going to be needing it because I'm going to create my own hanger. So now I'm going to go ahead and hot glue the bow back down. Then I'm just going to take smaller little picks and add them and just kind of eyeball it until I get it to look like the way that I like. Next, I'm going to take this little tiny pink flower and I'm going to hot glue that in the middle of my bow. Now that both tags are complete, it's time to stack one on top of the other and just kind of figure out how I want them to lay. So once I did get them laid out, I'm going to take a pencil and I'm going to trace around where that top tag ends. That way I know where to put my hot glue, and when I go to put that top tag back on, I can line it up where it was before. To complete my sign, I'm just going to make a very simple hanger, and I'm going to again cut off a very long piece of twine. I'm going to double it up, and then at the bottom I'm just going to tie a knot, and then I'm just going to hot glue the knot down on the back of my sign, and that was it. This sign is done. I thought that this was so pretty. I am really loving the pastel colors for spring and just the soft pinks and yellows like I stated earlier. So I just really love how this turned out, and of course I loved that calendar page too. Great pops of color. What do you think? Okay, so like I said earlier, I am in a collab today with Crafted by Corie and Krafty Kathy. I'm going to have the link to their videos down below. So if you're looking for even more spring inspiration for DIYs, definitely after watching my video, check out their videos. If you have been watching YouTube crafting for a while, you know who both these ladies are. They are so fun, so talented, and so sweet, and I thank both of them for collaborating with me. If you're coming over from one of their channels, welcome, and please comment down below where you came from, and I hope you love this video. All right, let's get back into crafting. For this next DIY, I'm going to be using a round sign from the Dollar Tree, and then one of these cute little pink purses that I also got from the Dollar Tree, although I'm showing you they have it in white as well. So, of course, the first thing I have to do is use my heat gun to go ahead and take off the tag. And what the heat gun does is heats up the adhesive at the bottom. And now I'm just going to sand it down and get ready to paint. So right now I'm going to use my plaster Waverly chalk paint. And I'm just going to give this entire sign a distressed coat, but it is painted mostly, but if little pieces of the brown come through, that's okay. Once my paint was dry, I'm going to go ahead and use that level again, and I'm just going to create those shiplap lines by just creating lines on the top and the bottom of my level, and then working my way down and then working my way back up. Next, I'm going to blend all the lines in by using my finger and just rubbing it all down. After that, I'm going to distress my board by taking this little chunky brush and Waverly Antique Wax, and I'm going to just dry brush this Waverly Antique Wax all over my board. Now, around the edges of my round sign, I do go in a little darker because I really wanted to highlight the sides. So basically, I'm just going back and forth between using my Waverly Antique Wax and that plaster paint and just kind of creating the distressed look I'm going for. I always try to make it look like my background that you can see on my table. And so I kind of use that as my inspiration and follow that same color tone and design. So like I said, I'm just going just in between the paint, the wax, and just sanding it down to create the look that I wanted. After my sign was done, I'm going to take this pink little purse. Like I said, it did come from the Dollar Tree. And I am going to cut off the back part of it. I only want one side of it. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut around it. So it only leaves me with one half. Now you can see on the half that I'm going to be using, there is like a little fold at the bottom. So I'm just going to use my hot glue to fold that in, and that way it gives it a nice clean edge as well. But you do have to use a good amount of hot glue, and you do kind of have to hold it there for a minute. That way the glue sets up. I'm also going to do the same thing going around the edges as well. However, when I do it around the edges, I'm going to wait until I actually put it on the board, and that way I have something to glue it to. So after I have that bottom folded up, glued down, I'm going to go ahead and start gluing my purse onto the wood sign. Now, my positioning is the ends of the purse at the bottom are at the bottom of the sign. And like I said, you do have to use a good amount of hot glue and hold it there until the glue sets up. So as you can see, I'm using that little rubber tool there to tuck the edge of the purse under, so it gives it that nice folded look. This is your friendly reminder that if you love what you see so far, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Not only does it really help my channel to grow, but it tells YouTube you love what you see and you want to see more. So hit that like button. All right, so once my purse was all glued down, and I did forget to mention, I only glued down the edges. That way the middle of the purse was open like a little pocket. I'm going to go ahead and take off that little flower, but keep it to the side because we will be using it again. And then I am going to hot glue down the handles, but I do end up changing that. So then I decided that I wanted to fill that hole up top. So I'm just going to add some spackle, sand it down when it dries, and then just add some more of that plaster paint and Waverly wax to help it all blend in with the rest of my sign. So it was a very easy fix. I totally forgot to do that at the beginning. All right, next I'm going to take this like kind of burlap lacy ribbon that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to hot glue that to the middle of my purse, and I am going to fold down the edges. That way it's a nice clean look and it looks like the ribbon is wrapped around the purse. Now, when you hot glue the middle of the purse with the ribbon, you're going to want to make sure that the glue doesn't go all the way through, because like I said, you want to leave that opening there, that little pocket there. So just kind of put your hand underneath it. I mean, be careful, but put your hand underneath it and kind of pop it up once the glue dries, so that way you have that opening again. So once my ribbon was all glued down, it was just time to fill this with flowers. Now, I sped this up because I am just not a good floral arranger. So I'm just, I'm just showing you what it looks like. And I'm just using a bunch of different florals from my stash. And then I'm going to take one of these metal words that I got in a fall bundle of metal words. And then this is where I decide to go ahead and take off that handle. So I just pried it off and then hot glued that flower back where it was. And now I am trying to position that metal word, but I did want it to pop off just a little bit more, or pop out. So I'm just dabbing it with some Waverly Antique Wax. And the neat thing is that this kind of gives it that rust look as well. So that's going to go with my whole rustic sign. Then it's time to hot glue my metal word in the middle of the ribbon. Then I didn't really like the edges of the purse, so I just took some twine and went ahead and wrapped the edges of my purse with that, and that really cleaned it up a lot. So I really liked how that looked. Now, I did have to cut down the ribbon a little bit so it wasn't longer than the twine, but it was fine. I just worked my way all around the purse. Then I felt like I wanted the perimeter of the sign to be a little darker and just kind of highlight it a little more. So I took that Waverly Antique Wax and that brush again, and I just dabbed it all the way around my sign. And that was it. That completed this super cute spring sign. I even thought, and I know it's totally too early to be thinking about this would make a really cute Mother's Day gift too, I think. But I think this is going to my grandma for spring. And the cool thing is you can actually use the purse handle as the handle. What do you think? For the third DIY, I'm going to use this little mason jar sign that I picked up from the Dollar Tree. And the first thing I'm going to do is remove the twine around the top and then take that metal piece off, although keep it close, we are going to use it again. And then I did start peeling off the paper in the front, but then I realized it would take a lot of sanding to get that lower layer off of there, or that bottom layer. So I just flipped it over, and again, I'm just going to use my heat gun to heat up that sticker and scrape it off. After that, I'm going to sand it down so it's ready to paint, and then I'm going to give this one good coat of ivory chalk paint. Now, I am going to make sure to go around all the sides and the top too. Once that paint was dry, I'm going to take my ballet slipper Waverly chalk paint, and I'm just going to lightly brush over the jar. Now, you can see on the sides, it's not completely covered, and that's okay. I wanted that brown to show through because, again, it gives it that rustic look. So after all of my paint was dry, it was time to hot glue that metal piece back on the top. So I just put it exactly where it was before. And then I'm going to take a piece of burlap and I'm going to cut it down so it fits in the middle of my mason jar. Then once I have the size I wanted, I'm going to fray the edges by pulling the strings off of every side, and you'll see how the edges become frayed. Then I'm going to hot glue my piece of burlap to the middle of my mason jar. Now be careful because of course the burlap has holes, so don't burn yourself. And then I'm just going to go ahead and kind of trim up the edges just to kind of make them a little bit more even, but I definitely don't want it to look perfect. After that, I'm going to take this calendar that I also picked up last year, and I'm going to pick the one that says Hello Spring. I really loved the colors of that one. Now, when I cut this little one out from the back page, I am going to leave a little white border around it. Now, the reason why I left that border was because I am actually going to tear around the sides, and this just gave me more wiggle room basically. So I am just going to go around the entire little picture and just tear it all up. Now, I wanted my little calendar picture to pop from the burlap a little bit, so I had this piece of cardboard sitting on my table, so I'm just cutting up little pieces, and then I'm just going to hot glue them all together just to give them a little height. And you wouldn't think that cardboard would raise my piece up that much, but it actually did. So once I got all my pieces glued together, I hot glued that to the calendar piece, and then hot glued the calendar piece to the middle of my burlap. Now I'm going to take my twine, and starting from the back, I'm going to wrap it around pretty much how that twine was there before, but I'm just going to wrap and wrap and wrap it until I get it how I like. And then again, I'm going to take some of that greenery and I'm going to hot glue two pieces end to end in the corner. So you have one going across and one going down, if that makes sense. Now you do have to put a lot of hot glue because these are kind of thick, but I just, held it there until the glue set up. And of course I'm using my little rubber tool there because this is thin. So, well, the piece is thick, but the stem is thin, so you don't want to burn yourself, obviously. So I'm just kind of building the greenery up just until I get it to how I wanted it to look. And then again, I'm going to take a long piece of twine and I'm going to double it up and just make a very simple bow. Next, I'm going to hot glue the bow where the pieces of greenery meet there in the corner. And I am hot gluing the greenery down even more because it was kind of like popping up, you can see. So I'm just pushing it all down. I just really wanted it to be flat. That way you can really see the bow. Then I took a little yellow button and hot glued it right to the middle of the bow. Next, I decided that I wanted to distress this a little bit, so I took some Waverly Antique Wax and I just went around the edges of my jar and then a little bit on the inside of the jar too. And then I dabbed it on the metal piece, of course, because it looks like rust, and then I went around the edges. Basically, I went over everything lightly. I even went over the greenery, the little Hello Spring sign, the burlap, so that way it just gave it all that rustic feel. I really love how this came out. I thought it was so cute and I love the colors. That ballet slipper pink is my pink. I love that shade. I just love the pale pink. And like I said, I'm really loving the pastels for spring, and then that'll be a great transition into Easter decor as well, which I can't wait to get into because I absolutely love Easter. But here's my little mason jar. Hello, spring sign. What do you think? For my fourth DIY, and this is my favorite one out of all of these, I picked up this book stack from the Dollar Tree around Valentine time, so now, and it took forever to get these in my stores. I had not seen them, but when I saw them, I grabbed a bunch because I love these little book stacks. So the first thing I'm going to do is give this book stack 2 coats of Waverly chalk paint in white. After my paint was dry, I'm going to take those decals again and I'm just going to lay them on my books. Now, I start at the top and crease it over, and I just wanted it to look like it was layered and like draping over the sides. So I'm just kind of playing with my decals until I get it to how I like. And then for the sides, I am actually going to cut off and place them back down to where they were supposed to be. And you'll see what I'm talking about in just a minute. But I loved how this turned out. Now, I even went on the ends of my book stack as well because, like I said, I just wanted it to look like these flowers were just going over the entire stack. After I made sure all my decals were pushed down really, really well, I took that knife again and carefully cut where the slats are. Now, you do want to be careful because it will move your decal. So just very carefully go over and inside each of the little slats. You can see that that kind of ripped that one a little bit. So that's why I say do it carefully and go slow. This is sped up, obviously, but I went super slow when I did this. And then to make those slats even more open, I guess, I took my scraper tool, which is a little thicker than that knife, and I went ahead and pressed that in those slots to go ahead and open them up more, if that makes sense. And then what this did was the paper or the decal that was around the slats, it kind of pushed it into the slat, if that makes sense. So it just kind of helped it stay down, basically. And then I went on the sides and did the same thing. Now, again, you could stop right here if you love how clean and crisp it is, but I do want to distress this a little, so I'm going to take that foam brush and I'm just going to take the Waverly Antique Wax and dab it all the way around the edges. And then I'm also going to go inside the slats. I'm going to go a little bit over the flowers, just basically adding that brown just kind of all over, lightly all over this book stack. Then to seal it all together, I'm going to Mod Podge the entire book stack, and this is going to help all my decals stay down. Next up, I printed this decal from my Cricut, and it says Spring in Bloom, and I love that. So I'm just going to go ahead and apply those to the sides. The font, I actually remembered it this time, is called Spring Break. How perfect is that? I thought it was a perfect fit. Now, to make the words look less bold and black, I went ahead and sanded them down lightly, and then you can see I'm taking that brush that I used to paint the book stacks, that white brush, and I'm just lightly going over it. And then I lost the dot in my eye, so I'm just using my paint marker to go ahead and add that. Next, I'm going to add some twine to the other side of my book stack, and I'm going to hot glue it starting in the back, and then I'm just going to wrap it around and around and around until I get the thickness of twine that I like. Then I'm going to take my random little greenery picks again, and I'm just going to stick them underneath the twine, and I'm just going to build it up with greenery until I like it. Once again, I'm going to make another shoelace bow out of my twine, and I'm going to hot glue that down onto my greenery. And I did decide to add some little picks to the sides as well. And then to top it off, I'm going to add this little pink flower that I had in my stash. I loved how this book stack came out. I think it's beautiful and perfect for spring. You can see why it's my favorite. What do you think? I am absolutely in love with all of these projects today. They are so my style, so my taste. They're gonna fit in perfectly to the decor for the spring season in my home. Just like I said, the pale colors, the soft colors, the rustic touches. I just absolutely love all of it. You're gonna have to let me know down in the comments which one of these DIYs was your favorite. I already told you what mine was, definitely that book stack, but I do love them all. I cannot wait to display them in my home this spring season. Let me know if you are starting some spring DIYs yet, or are you just not there yet? Northeast Ohio is still covered in snow, so I am ready for the snow to go and for spring to come in. Seriously, I'm over the cold weather. I again want to thank Kathy for inviting me to be part of this collab today, and for Corie to participating in it. So please definitely check out their videos listed down below, Krafty Kathy and Crafted by Corie. These ladies are so talented, and I love watching their videos, and I cannot wait to see what gorgeous spring DIYs they came up with. So I hope that you got a lot of inspiration and ideas today on some fun DIYs that you can create. And hey, if you haven't done so already, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and sure, hit that share button. Maybe one of your friends on YouTube are looking for some spring inspiration. Well, until I see you again, I'll craft with you soon. Bye!